And when starts the process, and again, I'm talking about biological specimens, can you generally describe what that process entails?
Sure. Typically, you start out performing toxicology analysis. Generally, it starts with screens, some type of screening process, some type of analysis where it's a simple yes or no answer. Okay? We screen, for example, we screen a blood sample for cocaine and opiates and methamphetamine and PCP and barbiturates and fentanyl. It's just a variety of drugs. And it's a simple test that says yes or no. Is it there or isn't there? If it's not there, we're done. If it is there, it goes on for a secondary test to definitively say what drug is in there. Okay, what drug caused that cross-reaction to that particular screen. That's one series of tests. You throw it into a different other tests. You do a pharmaceutical or a basic drug screen test where you're looking for different types of drugs, antidepressants, antipsychotics, antihistamines. You're doing another set of tests called neutrals. You're looking for some of the muscle relaxant type drugs, some of your anti-seizure medications. So there are a variety of tests that you have to begin with to get a basic understanding of what is going on with a particular case.
Okay. And as part of that testing process, does that involve performing what's known as an extraction?
Sure. In any of these type of tests that I'm explaining, an extraction is nothing more than taking a blood sample and applying some type of chemical extraction. I'm adding a chemical in order for the blood sample to release the drug into my chemical. Basically, I'm trying to clean up the process. I'm trying to get the drug out of the dirty matrix, the blood matrix, and into a clean medium where I can actually introduce onto an instrument. You cannot directly inject blood onto an instrument. Okay? The instrument won't last very long at all. So you actually clean up the blood specimen by doing a chemical extraction on it and put it onto an instrument.
Okay, and it sounds like that's kind of a form of isolation or type isolating what will actually be used with the instrument to test. Is that?
Yes, it's isolating the drugs of interest that you want to target and introduce it onto the instrument. Yes.
All right. And these instruments, these are scientific drug detection instruments. Is that accurate description?
Yes, they're called GCMSs. They're gas chromatograph mass spectrometers. We use GC-NPDs, gas chromatograph nitrogen phosphorus detectors. We use electron capture detectors. We use liquid chromatography with mass specs. We use a variety of instruments. I'm just trying to keep it somewhat generic.
Did you, your laboratory, perform biological testing as it relates to this case involving decedent Michael Jackson?
Yes, and we typically go with the coroner's case of 2009-04415 as a unique identifier, but yes.
And that is the number, 2009-04415.
That's correct.
Okay. And in the process of conducting biological testing in this case, did you take blood vials that had been recovered from coroner's investigator Alyssa Fleek from UCLA and include those as part of your testing?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And those blood vials related to a patient identification number 3975944?
I have no idea what the hospital ID number is on this particular decedent.
Okay, but it was booked into evidence and recovered by you after being booked in by Alyssa Fleek?
Alyssa Fleek hand-delivered the 4 specimens, the 4 hospital admission specimens to me.
Okay. Now, in regard to the biological testing of the specimens, so those would include both what was recovered from UCLA and hand-delivered to you by Alyssa Fleek, as well as what was obtained as a result of the autopsy in this case?
Yes.
And specifically as it relates to this case and the biological testing in this case, what was the first step that took place as far as what test or what initial preliminary analysis was done, things of that nature?
Well, referring to this big book in front of me, these are all my notes and from the laboratory, all the scientific tracings and actual reports and things like that. So I'm going to be referring to this book quite often, only because I didn't memorize this whole thing.
Okay.
So, the autopsy occurred on Friday, the 26th of June, 2009, and I actually attended the autopsy, at least the beginning portions of it, to advise the doctors these are the type of specimens that we're going to need, and they collected them and submitted them to the laboratory that afternoon. That afternoon, speaking about Friday the 26th, we immediately began the process of starting the screening. We performed what they call an ELISA screen, ELISA. It's a enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. It's a yes or no answer. It's an antigen-antibody reaction test that says yes or no to a series of drugs that I want to test for. We started that process. We started looking at benzodiazepines as a generic class, trying to identify which benzodiazepine is positive in this decedent. We evaluated it. I believe we began our basic or our pharmaceutical drug panel looking for, like I talked about, antidepressants, antipsychotics, antihistamines type drugs. Realize that all these tests that I'm talking about are not done instantaneously. It takes us a little bit. I mean, the specimens didn't get up to our laboratory until later in the afternoon, on Friday. Most of these tests that we run, it takes several hours to do a chemical extraction on them, and then several hours to get them onto an instrument, and then typically they run overnight. So most of these things weren't being evaluated until Monday morning when we all returned back from the weekend. I mean, so that's kind of the process, how it was happening.
Okay. And the analysis that was done on the various biological specimens, it was done by multiple different criminalists in your laboratory?
Yes, it was basically being handled by every single one of us.
All right. And a report was generated, in fact, an 8-page report entitled Forensic Science Laboratories Laboratory Analysis Summary Report, and it bears your signature as Daniel T. Anderson, Supervising Criminalist 2, Forensic Laboratories. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And does this 8-page report accurately document all of the findings in this case as to the various biological samples that were tested?
Yes.
And I'm going to reference this document, Mr. Anderson. Your Honor, I have this 8-page document. Thank you. And Mr. Anderson, referring to what I have up on the projector, which is page 1, again, this references the coroner case number that you've identified in the decedent, Michael Joseph Jackson?
That's correct.
All right. And going down to the bottom of this first page, referencing page 1 of 8, is this your name, Daniel T. Anderson, Supervising Criminalist 2, and your signature?
Yes, it is.
And it indicates that this report was administratively reviewed by yourself. What does that mean?
Well, prior to actually finalizing the document to be released, I have to go through all the different paperwork to make sure that each individual report accurately reflects what the summary report says, making sure transcription errors has not occurred. And that's what I did.
All right. And on the bottom of this report, it also references the hospital blood tube labeled trauma, Gershwin, drawn on 6/25/09. That's in the report?
Yes, it's put in as a footer.
I'm sorry?
It's put in as a footnote.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, going through then and referencing this first page, the first column to the left identifies the specimen. What is that?
Well, it identifies the specimen that was either submitted or tested.
Okay.
In this particular case, on this page, it has both heart blood as well as femoral blood. And those are two different bloods taken from the decedent during autopsy.
All right. And the next column over, service, what does that mean?
The services are various methodologies. It's kind of a roadmap for the laboratory in order for me to pass out different types of service worksheets. It's kind of a roadmap to allow the analyst to know that I'm in charge of, bases. So you give me all the bases requests. I'm in charge of alcohol. You give me all the alcohol requests. It's kind of a roadmap to allow us to distribute out the computer.
All right. And then the next column over to the right, drug. Can you describe that column?
The drug is actually the chemical name of the drug that we're isolating or looking for.
All right. And then level and units, those two columns, what are those?
The level are in units. If the level is blank, then we basically didn't find anything. If there was something to be found, there is an associated number with it. The units, is the unit of measure, how things are measured. And there's a variety of ways of recording it, and we choose to record it either in micrograms per milliliter, or the UG per ml, or nanograms per milliliter, or NG per ml.
All right, and in that regard, the micrograms per milliliter, again, so on this first one is UG/ml. So this reading, for example, would be 0.84 micrograms per milliliter.
That's correct.
All right. And then on the same page, just as an example, there's references on the bottom, NG/ml. Those would be nanograms per milliliter?
Yes.
And what's bigger, a microgram or a nanogram?
A microgram is larger. Basically, if you take a look at, if you go back to the top for me, it was easier there. The 0.84 micrograms per milliliter is actually a larger number than the 169 nanograms. It'd be 840 nanograms per milliliter if I made the conversion. It's a thousandth unit off. So the 0.84 would be 840 in comparison to the 169. Or I could do the other way, take the 169 and divide it by 1,000 and be a 0.169 micrograms per milliliter.
So why are different drugs put into different either nanograms, for example, or micrograms per milliliter?
In our laboratory, we take the approach that we typically want to report out drugs of interest that are within like a therapeutic range. A lot of these drugs that we report out in nanograms per milliliter, their therapeutic range is very low. So it's easier to give it a whole number in a nanogram than it is to say, something is a 0.003 micrograms. It's easier to call it 3 nanograms than 0.003. It's just really based on that.
All right. And then the last column over, you have a column labeled analyst, and can you explain that as it relates to this particular report?
Yes, the analysts are the people that actually either had a hand in the actual testing of the drug or finalized that particular report. It's very specific. Each one are fully qualified. They go through competency and proficiencies before they're deemed qualified to perform analytical work. So they're my toxicologists that do all the work.
All right. Before I begin proceeding through these, Your Honor, is now a good time?
Since you've asked, we have a few minutes, but if it's best to take the break?
I think so, Your
All
Honor.
right. Okay with the defense?
Yes.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully it's okay with you. We're going to take the noon break at this time. As always, please remember and follow to the letter the written admonitions as well as my continuing verbal admonishments and orders. Please enjoy your lunch. We'll be in recess until 1:30 p.m., and we'll resume at that time. And jurors may leave. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Anderson, after the jurors leave, you may step down. Please don't discuss.